Alderaan was silent, as if the planet itself mourned the loss of Padme Amidala. Yoda, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Bail Organa gathered in a private room. The two babies slept in nearby cribs, oblivious to the gravity of the moment that would define their destinies. For Obi-Wan, Anakin had died on Mustafar. He could barely process the magnitude of the tragedy that had befallen the galaxy. The Empire had triumphed, the Republic had fallen, and the Jedi were practically extinct in a single night of betrayal and blood. Bail looked at the children with a mixture of compassion and determination, knowing that upon those small beings rested the hope of restoring peace to the galaxy. Separated they must be. Protect from the Emperor we must, said Yoda, his voice laden with ancient wisdom and deep sorrow. Obi-Wan crossed his arms, contemplating the Grand Master's words with a thoughtful and worried expression. Bail Organa approached the Jedi Masters, his noble posture revealing the seriousness of his proposal to keep the children safe. They can remain here on Alderaan, said Bail with unwavering conviction. I can keep them hidden for as long as necessary, far from the eyes of the Emperor and his servants. Obi-Wan shook his head negatively, his blue eyes reflecting a determination born from guilt for not having saved Anakin in time. If Yoda and I remain together, we can offer much greater protection to the children, Kenobi argued with growing firmness. Yoda closed his eyes for a long moment, reaching out to the Force seeking guidance to make the right decision. The possibilities unfolded before him like paths at a cosmic crossroads, each leading to different and uncertain futures. When he finally opened his eyes, there was a clear resolution in his green and penetrating gaze that crossed millennia of experience. Together we will stay, Yoda decided with final authority. Luke with us will come, and Leia with Senator Organa will remain, thus divided the targets will be. Bail nodded solemnly, understanding the wisdom behind the strategy of separating the twins to different worlds and guardians. Obi-Wan took little Luke in his arms, feeling the weight of the responsibility he now carried on his shoulders. The child briefly opened his blue eyes, looking at the Jedi Master before returning to peaceful sleep. The journey to Ahch-To was silent and full of reflections about the past and the unfolding future. Yoda guided the ship through the lesser-known hyperspace routes, avoiding any possibility of detection by Imperial sensors. Obi-Wan held Luke carefully, observing the innocent face of the child who carried the Skywalker legacy. The ocean planet appeared before them like a forgotten sanctuary, its rocky islands emerging from the turbulent waters. Here, where the first Jedi built their ancestral temple, the last would be trained far from the darkness that consumed the galaxy. The ship landed gently on one of the main islands, where ancient ruins witnessed the lost glory of the Jedi Order. The last Jedi would be trained where it all began, a complete cycle closing and opening simultaneously. The following years were dedicated entirely to Luke Skywalker's formation from his first steps. Yoda and Obi-Wan worked in perfect synchrony, complementing each other's teachings with unmatched pedagogical mastery. Luke learned to meditate before he even learned to read, his connection with the Force growing naturally like a well-tended plant. The boy practiced combat forms with training sabers while Yoda corrected his posture and Obi-Wan refined his movements. The lessons were rigorous but never cruel, balancing discipline with understanding of a developing child's needs. Luke grew strong and skillful, his progression exceeding even the most optimistic expectations of the Jedi Masters. The greatest Jedi Master of all time was at his disposal, molding him to be the warrior the galaxy desperately needed. The routine in Ahch-To was structured but adaptable, allowing Luke to develop not only martial skills but also wisdom. Obi-Wan told stories about the ancient Jedi, about heroes who defended peace and justice in times of darkness. Yoda taught philosophy and deep connection with the living Force, revealing secrets that few Jedi had known. Luke absorbed each lesson with a natural aptitude that constantly impressed both masters throughout the years. The ocean storms that lashed the island served as a backdrop for meditations on the nature of chaos and order. On clear days, Luke practiced impossible acrobatics on the cliffs, his Force-enhanced agility making him almost ethereal. His training began at the right age, without the emotional vices that destroyed so many other promising apprentices. The years transformed the boy into a young man of extraordinary power, whose presence in the Force shone like a beacon. Luke had grown tall and strong, his movements combining the lethal grace of a predator with the serenity of a sage. Yoda decided it was time to teach one of the most advanced and dangerous techniques of the ancient Jedi Order. Force lightning, young Skywalker, Yoda began with deep seriousness. Master this power you must, for the weapon of the dark side it also is, but used by the light it can be. Luke absorbed the teaching with an ease that left even Yoda momentarily surprised by the magnitude of his talent. The first attempts were weak, small arcs of energy crackling between his fingers with visible instability. Obi-Wan watched with a mixture of pride and apprehension, remembering how Anakin also mastered powers too quickly. Over the passing weeks, Luke perfected the technique until he could generate powerful lightning that cracked the ancient rocks. His connection with the Force had reached levels that surpassed even Anakin Skywalker's maximum potential. Obi-Wan confessed to Yoda in private that he had never felt such power in any Jedi he had known. More powerful than his father, this one is, Yoda agreed with a slow nod of his head. But tempered by wisdom, he is different from Anakin's path his will be. Luke not only mastered combat techniques and Force powers, but also understood philosophy and diplomacy with remarkable depth. He questioned, reflected, and internalized the teachings in a way that demonstrated maturity beyond his years of life. The young Jedi was becoming exactly what the galaxy needed to face the darkness consuming it. On a particularly tranquil day, Luke appeared in his training robes that he had personally chosen a few months earlier. The clothes were completely black, from the tunic to the boots, creating a striking contrast with his luminous posture. Obi-Wan felt a chill upon seeing the garment, as it was frighteningly similar to what Anakin wore before his fall. Luke noticed the master's look and asked if there was something wrong with his choice of clothing. Obi-Wan hesitated, but decided not to mention the similarity, fearing to plant seeds of doubt or create unnecessary parallels. Yoda, however, observed attentively, perceiving that the Force operated in mysterious ways through the generations of the Skywalker family. The choice was unconscious, an echo through the force of connections that Luke still completely unknew. Appropriate your clothes are, Yoda finally said, approving the choice without revealing his own internal concerns. Luke's training now focused on preparation for an inevitable confrontation that was rapidly approaching. Obi-Wan and Yoda had decided it was time to reveal the existence of Darth Vader and the Emperor. Luke listened attentively while the Masters described the two Sith who ruled the galaxy with absolute tyranny. Darth Vader is a relentless enforcer of the Emperor, Obi-Wan explained with a controlled but tense voice. He destroyed the Jedi, betrayed everything we defended, and now spreads terror throughout all star systems. Yoda complimented with details about Emperor Palpatine, the former Chancellor who orchestrated the Republic's fall. Defeat both you must, Yoda said with absolute gravity. Prepared for this destiny you were trained from the beginning. Luke accepted the mission without hesitation, his determination unwavering before the magnitude of the task that awaited him. The Masters, however, omitted a crucial detail about Darth Vader's identity that could complicate the psychological preparation. They did not reveal that Vader was actually Anakin Skywalker, Luke's biological father who had supposedly died. Obi-Wan justified the secret to himself as necessary to avoid emotional conflict during the final training. Yoda agreed, though with reservations about the consequences of such omission when the truth inevitably emerged. Luke practiced combat against both masters simultaneously, his skill now surpassing even Yoda's. The sabers created luminous patterns in the air as Luke moved with speed that defied normal perception. His strength in the Force had grown so much that he could sense echoes of life across vast distances. More powerful than any Jedi he had become, a living weapon against the darkness threatening to extinguish the light. During a particularly deep meditation, Luke felt something he had never experienced before through the Force. A familiar but unknown presence called to him across the galaxy, a connection that resonated in his own being. Master Yoda, Luke said, suddenly opening his eyes. I sense someone connected to me through the Force in a way different from anything I've known. Yoda and Obi-Wan exchanged significant looks, knowing immediately that Luke had discovered Leia through the twin bond. "Your sister, young Skywalker," Yoda finally revealed. "Twins you are, separated for protection you were, since birth." Luke remained silent, processing the revelation, thousands of questions arising simultaneously in his trained mind. "I need to find her," Luke declared with conviction that admitted no denial. "I need to meet my sister and protect her as well." The Masters agreed that the moment had arrived to reunite the Skywalker twins and begin the campaign against the Empire. The journey to Alderaan was the first time Luke had left Ahch-To since his distant and hazy childhood. The galaxy that revealed itself before him through the ship's window was simultaneously wonderful and frightening in its vastness. Obi-Wan piloted skillfully while Yoda remained in meditation, preparing for the meeting with Bail Organa. Luke observed everything with eager eyes, absorbing every detail of the trade routes, space stations, and passing planets. Alderaan appeared before them like a green and blue jewel in the vacuum of space, its cities shining softly. The ship landed on a private platform of the royal palace, where Bail Organa anxiously awaited the visitor's arrival. Luke descended the ramp with the confidence of a Jedi Master, his presence immediately drawing everyone's attention. Bail greeted Yoda and Obi-Wan warmly before turning his attention to the young man who had grown far from his eyes. "You have grown strong, Luke Skywalker," Bail said with genuine admiration. "Your sister will be very happy to finally meet you." Luke felt his sister approaching before he even saw her, the connection through the Force intensifying dramatically. Leia Organa entered the hangar with firm steps, her own presence in the Force resonating in harmony with Luke's. The meeting between the twins was electrifying, both instantly feeling the depth of their connection through the Force. Leia stopped a few meters from Luke, her eyes studying the brother she had never known but had always subconsciously missed. "Luke," she said simply, his name sounding natural on her lips as if she had always known it. Luke smiled, feeling a completeness he didn't know he was missing until that moment of mutual recognition. "Sister," he responded with controlled but evident emotion. "The Force kept us connected even across distance and time." They embraced, and for a moment the rest of the galaxy seemed to disappear, leaving only two siblings finally reunited. Bail, Yoda, and Obi-Wan watched the scene with satisfaction, knowing that moment represented renewed hope for the galaxy. Leia guided Luke through the palace corridors to a meeting room where Rebel Alliance members awaited. Luke was introduced to commanders, strategists, and pilots who dedicated their lives to resisting the oppressive Empire. The rebellion operated in the shadows, carrying out sabotage missions and rescuing those persecuted by the growing Imperial tyranny. Luke listened attentively to the reports about the atrocities committed by the Empire, his determination to defeat them solidifying even further. Leia explained that they needed someone with Luke's skills for missions that simple soldiers could not accomplish. The young Jedi agreed to aid the rebellion, seeing in it the path to restore justice to the galaxy. Part of the training included learning to pilot fighters, a skill Luke mastered with the same supernatural ease as everything else. In the simulators, he broke records established by veteran pilots with decades of space combat experience. Luke's integration with the rebellion was quick and natural, his charismatic personality winning over even the most skeptical. He spent weeks training with squadrons, learning tactics and developing camaraderie with other fighters for freedom. Leia and Luke spent hours talking, getting to know each other and making up for the time lost since separation. It was during one of these conversations that the devastating news arrived that would change everything completely and accelerate events. Leia had been captured by Darth Vader during a diplomatic mission that appeared safe but was a trap. The droids C-3PO and R2-D2 who accompanied her were also taken, and with them the stolen Death Star plans. Luke felt the capture through the Force, Leia's anguish echoing through their connection with alarming intensity. Without hesitation, he declared he would rescue her, no matter the risks or objections from rebel commanders. Yoda and Obi-Wan tried to argue that a hasty rescue could be exactly what the Emperor desired. But Luke remained inflexible, his determination unwavering before any logical or strategic argument presented by the Masters. "She is my sister," Luke said with absolute firmness. "I will not abandon her in the hands of Vader and the Emperor." Yoda realized that trying to stop him would be futile and potentially harmful to Luke's emotional balance at that moment. Prepared you are, Yoda finally agreed. Rescue your sister you must, but caretake young Skywalker. Luke planned the mission meticulously, using Rebel intelligence information about the Death Star's movements. He would steal an Imperial fighter from a nearby installation, infiltrate the battle station, and rescue Leia. Obi-Wan offered to accompany him, but Luke insisted he would be more efficient alone, able to move with speed and discretion impossible for a group. With his green-bladed saber attached to his belt and the Force as his ally, Luke Skywalker departed for his first real mission against the Empire. The infiltration of the Imperial installation was executed with surgical precision that reflected years of intensive training on Ahch-To. Luke used Jedi mind tricks to pass the outer guards, his presence practically invisible through the Force. The hangar was full of Imperial fighters aligned in perfect formation, awaiting their designated pilots for routine patrols. Luke chose a fighter in the shadows, quickly checking the systems before taking off without authorization or hesitation. Alarms sounded immediately, but he was already in space, navigating through orbital traffic with innate skill. The Death Star hovered in the vacuum like a metallic moon of destruction, its sinister presence sending waves through the Force. Luke transmitted stolen authorization codes, his calm voice convincing traffic control he was just another returning pilot. The fighter landed in the cavernous hangar of the battle station, surrounded by hundreds of other ships and thousands of soldiers. Luke waited until most of the technicians moved away before emerging from the cockpit with calculated movements. He used the Force to sense Leia's presence, locating her several levels below in the high-security detention section. The path there would be long and full of enemies, but Luke felt no fear, only unwavering determination. He activated his saber, the green blade illuminating the hangar with ethereal glow that drew immediate attention. Stormtroopers turned in surprise, their weapons pointing at the solitary figure emerging from the shadows with lethal intent. Luke advanced, his saber cutting the first blaster shots before counterattacking with impossible speed to follow. The corridor transformed into a battlefield as Luke destroyed everything in his path with brutal efficiency. Combat droids marched to intercept him, their targeting systems trying to track the target moving faster than it should. Luke spun his saber in precise arcs, cutting the droids into pieces that fell with metallic crashes. He extended his hand, using the Force to twist and crush droids at a distance, their chassis bending like paper. The stormtroopers were eliminated without mercy, their shots deflected back at them or simply cut by the green saber. Luke didn't stop, didn't hesitate, each movement flowing naturally to the next in a deadly dance of destruction. More Imperial soldiers constantly arrived, but all fell before the young Jedi who advanced implacably toward his objective. The detention section was fortified with armored doors and multiple layers of sophisticated electronic security. Luke used the Force to sense the internal mechanisms, manipulating them until the doors opened obediently. Leia was in a cell at the end of the corridor, accompanied by C-3PO and R2-D2 who beeped anxiously. "Luke?" Leia asked incredulously upon seeing her brother appear like an avenging ghost through the smoke. "I came for you," Luke responded simply, cutting the energy bars with his saber. They ran through the corridors while alarms echoed throughout the Death Star, alerting about the escape in progress. Luke led the way, avoiding patrols and eliminating those who couldn't be avoided with deadly efficiency. Leia watched astonished at her brother's power, realizing that stories about Jedi barely did justice to reality. Fate, however, awaited them in a wide corridor near the escape hangars planned for evacuation. Darth Vader emerged from the shadows, his mechanical breathing echoing sinisterly in the confined space of the battle station. Luke pushed Leia and the droids back, placing himself between them and the Sith Lord with unwavering courage. "So you are the Jedi who caused such destruction on my station," Vader said with a voice distorted by his mask. Luke ignited his green saber, the blade humming in defiance against the red blade Vader activated simultaneously. They launched at each other, sabers colliding in energy explosions that illuminated the corridor. Luke fought with all the skill Yoda and Obi-Wan had taught him, each strike precise and powerful. Vader initially underestimated his opponent, but quickly realized he faced someone extraordinarily skilled and dangerously powerful. The battle intensified, Luke pressing Vader with combinations the Sith Lord didn't expect from someone so young. Vader tried to use the Force to unbalance Luke, but discovered the young man was equally strong in that aspect. Luke counterattacked, pushing Vader through the Force with enough power to make him retreat several steps. The green saber found openings in Vader's defense, causing damage to the vital system of his protective suit. Vader staggered, realizing with growing horror that he was losing to this mysterious young man whose identity he completely unknew. Luke prepared for the final blow, his saber raised to end the Imperial Enforcer's life. "Wait," Vader suddenly said, his voice laden with desperate urgency. "I am your father." Luke froze, the saber trembling in his hands as he processed the impossible words echoing in the corridor. Through the Force, Vader had sensed the family connection, finally recognizing the son he believed dead for so many years. Luke also felt the truth through the Force, the blood bond impossible to deny despite the dark armor. The moment was interrupted by the arrival of an even more sinister and powerful presence that made the temperature seem to drop drastically. Emperor Palpatine appeared through the shadows, his perception through the dark side having alerted him to Luke's power, and that Vader was at risk. "So this is the young man who threatens my empire," the Emperor said with a hissing and dangerously calm voice. Luke turned to face the former Chancellor, sensing the abyss of darkness emanating from that corrupted being. "You destroyed the Republic, killed the Jedi, and enslaved the galaxy," Luke accused with a controlled but furious voice. The Emperor laughed, a sound that seemed to scrape against reality like nails on rusted metal. "And you, young fool, will die like all the others who opposed my absolute power." Blue energy lightning exploded from the Emperor's twisted hands, launching against Luke with deadly intent. Luke put away his saber while raising his own hands to meet the attack with green lightning. The corridor illuminated with the titanic clash of Force energy as the Sith and Jedi faced each other. The Emperor intensified his attack, surprised that someone could resist his manifestation of the dark side so easily. Luke, however, had been trained by Yoda specifically for this moment, and his mastery of Force lightning surpassed even the Emperor's. Gradually, the green lightning began to push the blue back, light literally overcoming darkness before everyone's eyes. The Emperor screamed in fury and disbelief as his own energy was turned against him with multiplied force. Luke advanced step by step, implacable and determined, until the lightning completely consumed Emperor Palpatine. The Sith Lord fell, his twisted body finally silent after decades of spreading terror throughout the entire galaxy. Vader watched from the side, gravely wounded but alive, witnessing the impossible happen before him. Luke turned to the high-ranking officers who had arrived to witness the expected confrontation between Jedi and Sith. Their faces showed absolute terror upon realizing that both Vader and the Emperor had been defeated by a single adversary. Luke gave them no chance to surrender or flee, using the Force with surgical and lethal precision. He raised his hands, and the officers were lifted from the ground, their throats closing under invisible pressure. In moments, the Death Star's military leadership was eliminated, their bodies falling inert in the metallic corridors. Leia activated her communicator, contacting Bail Organa urgently to transmit the impossible that had just witnessed. "The Death Star is without command," Leia reported with a voice still trembling from adrenaline. Luke defeated the Emperor and Vader. Bail immediately mobilized the rebel fleet that had been waiting hidden, launching the long-planned invasion. Rebel forces invaded the Death Star while the remaining stormtroopers, without leadership and demoralized, offered minimal resistance. Bail Organa personally commanded the occupation, his presence inspiring the soldiers who had fought for so long in the shadows. The station's capture was quick and relatively without additional unnecessary bloodshed for both sides. Luke remained beside the dying Vader, observing the man who was simultaneously monster and biological father. Vader looked at Luke through the dark lenses of his mask, unable to express the conflicting emotions consuming him. "Luke," Vader whispered with growing difficulty. "Sorry for everything." There were no adequate words to respond, so Luke simply remained present while Vader succumbed to his grave injuries. With the Death Star under rebel control and the Emperor dead, the galaxy awakened to a new era of hope. Bail transmitted communications throughout all systems, announcing the Empire's end and the beginning of the Republic's restoration. Luke Skywalker stood on the observation bridge, looking at the stars and sensing through the Force the waves of hope beginning to spread across countless worlds. Light had triumphed over darkness, and a new chapter began for the galaxy, finally freed from the tyranny that oppressed it.